Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Albert Sugar Bear Barbieri, also known as
Number 8 in your scorecard, number 1 in your heart.
Thanks
That's
for
right.
joining me. Appreciate
What's
you
up,
taking the
Stat? No, my pleasure. I ain't got no life. I got nothing to do.
time.
Thanks for having me, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely. I
Where
so
are
I
you?
want to know. I
Where
want
are
to
you?
know
First of all,
about.
what part of the country are you? Where are you
I
at?
mean,
In fact,
Connecticut.
Connecticut?
Connecticut.
Cool.
Yeah. ESPN, right down the street.
Oh, nice. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Yeah. Sports Center, all that.
Yeah.
It's like a stone's throw away from me.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. A lot of famous faces go through there quite a
Through
bit.
there? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I've,
sure they
I've
do.
been down there. I've been down to the studio and all that.
Wow. Cool. It must be cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Well, I want to talk about your past and where it all started for you.
Yeah, well, you got to know now, I'm a South Philly guy, born and raised. I was born September 1958 to Thomas and Loretta Barbieri. Uh, they had 2 boys, my brother Tommy, who's deceased, almost 20 years now, and me. And let's say I come from a broken home. My father and mother divorced when I was an infant. So, and I grew up in South Philly. And I grew up in a parish called St. Monica Parish. It was one of the largest parishes in South Philly, known to be the rich parish. You had all different parishes. South Philly is, I don't know, I would say it's like a couple mile radius itself, maybe a mile and a half radius. But yeah, so, my father was in my life. He was a good dad, being a divorcee. I lived with my mother and my brother, of course, and both parents did not remarry. And I had a beautiful childhood. So that, it's South Philly back in the growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s was a nice time.
What
And
your parents both Italian?
both Italian, yes.
Was
My
it
mother was
Italian neighborhood
yeah,
all
well,
around you guys?
South Philly had different sections, predominantly Italian, but you had on both sides of the South Philly on each end, you had a section called Gray's Ferry and you had Second Street. And Second Street comprised of Irish, Polish, and then the same way on Gray's Ferry, mixed in with Italians also, but predominantly Irish, Polish, and then you had your sections where your African American section, and not many. There was not a. I don't remember. There was not many Jewish families in South Philly, but that's what it was. Predominantly Italian, Irish, Polish, you know, and yeah, that's
What,
the makeup of South Philly.
what was your early childhood like?
Oh, it was great. It was great. Like I said, you know, uh, the young generation listening to this just really wouldn't comprehend this, but it was sports for me. I was a nice athlete in grade school, high school, but growing up in my young teenage years, Little League 12, 13, 14, there was a sports organization called Delaware Valley Delaware Valley Youth Athletic Association. It's where you played baseball and your football. It was it was your football. It was tackle football back then. You don't see tackle football much these days at a teenage years. They just don't do it. They play flag football. But I was blessed to have a hell of an organization. It was almost like you belonged to a Division I program. It was the parents of the kids were just great parents. The coaches were just nice guys there were great coaches. I was blessed to be surrounded with these coaches. A lot of were instrumental to my life growing up as an athlete, and it was just a beautiful time. It was down in 19th and Johnson, 18th and Johnson, in South Philly playground. It was great. It was great. You felt like you were playing for Notre Dame, you
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah.
I was in eighth grade, seventh, eighth grade, playing 95, 100-pound football. And then there was the 120-pound level. But then by the time I got into high school, I played for my high school, Bishop Newman. I only played 1 year of varsity football, played a couple years JV. I only played 1 year of varsity football because the talent before me, I had to wait till they graduated. I was a halfback. And then baseball, I played growing up, you know, Little League, and playing with the DV. That's what we would call our team. Our team was called DV. And then I played the varsity baseball for Bishop Newman my sophomore, junior, and senior year. And them years were just special years, great years. Really was. Made a lot of friends, still friendly with those guys that I grew up. I'm in touch with a lot of them. So it was a wonderful childhood. Like I said, just beautiful childhood.
So did you ever get into trouble or anything like that, or were you a good kid?
Nah, nah, no. No, I was a good kid. I was just playing sports. Never got involved in any trouble. I wasn't mischief type of a kid. Um, Let me see. I'm trying to. Nah, in school, you know, in grade school, it's just funny. You know, these names you would recognize. I was in grade school in eighth grade. Ralphie Punjator. You heard the Punjator family. You heard of Joey, Anthony. They were involved. It's Blonde Babe's sons, Joey, Anthony, and Ralphie. Ralphie was in my eighth grade class. And then I'm sure you know about Chicky Changolini, right?
Of
He
course.
had three boys, and the middle boy, Joey, also in my graduating class of 72 in my homeroom. So it was me, Ralphie, Joey, and I remember we were just clowns in eighth grade. We'd just be ball breakers, and every other once a month, either my father or Chicky or Blonde Babe would have to come up to none wanted to see our fathers and tell them what we're doing and we're being just devils in class. So, you know, it was funny when I look back now, it's like, can you imagine Chicky Changolini, Blonde Babe, and my father? He was a racketeer guy. You know, he wasn't involved in the mob per se, but my God, everybody knew my father, Tommy Blizzard. You know, he was a fan favorite of my friends growing up. And they would come up in suits and ties. That's how they dressed back then in
Yeah.
1971, 72. But no, I wasn't a troubled kid. Not at all. I was liked. I was easy to get along with. I made friends. And being the son of Blizzard, my father, Tommy Blizzard, who was well liked, that helped because my father was respected in his own way. He was a nice guy, helped a lot of people. My father was helped a lot of people, and
For the people that don't know, what is the racketeer?
you know, racketeer guy is a guy that's involved. And I'll just use my father example, and I'll tell you how I came to know all this. Obviously, when I'm growing up, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, I don't know nothing. But a racketeer is a guy who's involved in gambling, earning money for, you know, the mob, the mafia, whoever's in charge. My father was a number writer, loan shark, bookmaker, his horse establishments. He's earning money with permission to do it in the gambling fashion of organized crime. That's a racketeer. So that's what the father was.
Was there any situations when you were growing up that your father got into that you were aware of?
And you know what's funny? It's a funny story. You know, as I'm in eighth grade, my father would come to my games, basketball games, baseball games, and I'll never forget it. And it's on my father's rap sheet too. It's so funny. I have my father's two double rap sheet of all his pictures from 1947. He was born in 1920, so from 47 all the way to 74. But anyway, I'll never forget. I come home from high school, and I could walk down. I would walk from my high school, Bishop Newman High School. I could walk to my father's house, and then from there go to where I lived with my mother. And I get to the house, and I see a split into the wooden door. You know, you got the wood door and the screen door. And I open, and I see a split, and I see it taped, a long tape that's covering the split that happened. And I said to my father, "What the hell happened?" Right?
Yeah.
Now listen to the stories. These are how the stories they tell. Somebody from the neighborhood called because they seen the exhaust from the dryer that's on the bottom of the house, right on the pavement. The steam, they thought it was a fire. Right? This is the bullshit my father's throwing at me to disguise that Vice Squad came and with a hatchet busting down the door to make a pinch. You understand? This is the story my father gives me. Of course, I drink it and swallow it. What do I know? You know, I'm a freshman or sophomore, freshman in high school.
Yeah.
So, you know, living with my mother never bad talked my father, but you start to hear and see hints that my father doesn't work for a living. I see the cars he drives, dressed impeccable during the day. And I'll never forget, then I would see in my company, people approach my father. If I was with my father, giving my father a number. My father was a big time number writer back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. If there was a Mount Rushmore of big time number writers in South Philly, my father was one of them.
That's kind of like a lottery, right?
Yeah, it's the street number that comes out from a racetrack every day. The first number comes out around 3, the next one at 4, and then the final number, 3-digit number. Don't ask me how to explain it. It's figured out by some mathematician or whatever, how the races come in or whatever. But it was big and it was huge. And anyway, I would see guys come up to my father, Blizz, give me 228 for $10, straight. And being around now, by the time I'm hanging in her corners and I'm starting to get educated, I can see, and I'll never forget the one time a friend of mine in high school his father drops me off at the house before I get out of the car. He says, give this to your father, tell him whatever number, 218, $5 straight, okay, for today, because it's still early before the number comes out. Gotta get. And I remember walking in the house, and I say, Dad, Joe Fish, my friend Mikey DeLuca's father. Joe Fish said, my father said, don't ever fucking take a number from anybody. Do you understand me? I'm 15 years old. And he gives it to me. Don't fuck you. Want to know why? And I'm like, why, Dad? Because that guy can say he says he hit the number say he gave me 218 and 219 comes out. But I tell my father 218. He can try to take a shot at my father and say, no, I told your son 219. Do you understand? So he gave it to me. Don't ever fucking take a number from somebody. They want to play a number, let him give it to me. Because my father had a reputation, like he didn't have to write a number down. My father was just brilliant.
It makes sense.
It did make sense. It did make sense. Yeah. And then, so as I then, obviously when I get to be 17, 18, 19 years old, I know my father is involved. But I didn't know, now that's mid-70s, and he's only got about another 10 years left before he weeds himself out. He dies in 1989. But unbeknownst to me, I realized how serious, from the rap sheet that I see, that he was involved. He was involved, and he just had to give his, earnings. He was protected by Angelo Bruno, family, and that's what his basically was. This is all prior, before Angelo got killed in 80. And then I also recall when Angelo Bruno got killed, I only asked my father one time a question about his involvement or whatever. And this wasn't like, I'm not trying to depict a scene out of The Godfather when Michael Corleone tells his wife, Kate, you only get to ask me one time. I just happened to ask my dad. When Bruno got killed and then the war started, and then there was talks in the media about a new regime was coming in and approaching bookmakers and number writers on the street for street tax, right? Yeah. And I don't know what made me ask this question. And I said, yo, Dad,